Hey everyone, welcome again to an episode of Revenue Engine Masters. I'm Elio, the co-founder and CEO of ScaleStack. Maybe you followed the show before, maybe you didn't, but usually we interview amazing people that are in the trenches and in the revenue engine of amazing companies. And so we go deep with the operators, the architects, the people that are actually making things happen and how revenue build up over time. And that also help turning chaos, because the go-to-market motion is very chaotic. It has to do with people, systems, and data into flow and motion. So today, my guest is SK Ramakuru. He's a friend now. You know him for sure. He's the Director of Sales Productivity, Strategy, and Analytics at MongoDB. We've been working together for, I forget how long now, probably going 3-4 years.
Easily 4 years.
Yeah. And we also share an Amazonian past. You used to be at AWS. I used to be at AWS. But it's been amazing for me to see how you have evolved in your role over this past few years and have developed a really interesting perspective on how things are, how they should be, and how they can be with also the AI platform that we have now available to improve all of our systems and operations. SK, you're former Amazonian, tell us maybe a little bit about your career now, but you bring to me, you've always brought a couple of things. First, super sharp analytical mind, but also very first principle type of operational rigor, and then approachability, which I think is very important in terms of being curious, being passionate, and trying to make things simpler, because in our world, things have a way to get complex. So I'm so glad you're here. Welcome to the program. Do you want to maybe add a few words or anything that you want to say now before
Elio,
we start?
Thank you so much for having me on the show. I can't wait. It's been long overdue.
Yes.
I'm so happy to meet you all along with Elio. Elio is a friend, is a mentor. I learn a lot from him. Elio, you and I, whenever we talk, time doesn't matter, right? We geek out about systems, processes, architectures, how RevOps as a role is going to evolve, and for me, this role has facilitated that, right? I'm very fortunate to meet all of the brilliant minds like you guys in this role, and I've always been eager to learn. So I always believed, Elio, selling is one of the it's a very niche skill. Whenever we put a seller in front of a customer, and you sell ScaleStack, it's super hard, right? Even though I give you every propensity of that account, I tell you that this account has this champion and he's definitely going to buy it. Just go talk, but the sale doesn't happen.
Yeah.
It's just that context that you have in the 30 minutes and how you maneuver that conversation. Selling is such a great skill, right? People often actually, it's very easy for us to kind of reduce that skill to data analysis, but definitely not. I completely respect it and I enjoy helping sellers sell. And RevOps is such a role, right? You are not at the forefront of the sale, but you are the engine that is driving the sale behind. And I enjoyed it every bit, whether I was at Amazon or NXP Semiconductors before it, or at MongoDB. I enjoyed it. I enjoy helping sellers sell. And
I
you
mean,
and I have seen that.
Yeah, this is a love letter to sales. I think it's great. It shows why you're passionate about this stuff, why you care, because you also understand how difficult it is to sell. And so putting those sellers and teams in the best position to perform as best as they can is it's clearly something that you care about, and it shows. So this was a great intro. Maybe how did you get here? So you now have an established career, at a great company, have lots of good experience. But can we go back to the early stages of your career? What did you do and what prepared you for this?
Long ago, right? I was born and brought up in India in a techie town called Hyderabad. I'm not sure you're familiar with Hyderabad or not.
I am.
So Hyderabad grew as a tech hub along with me. So
Yeah.
India opened up for business in 1991, probably a year after I was born. And Hyderabad took off from then. Tech companies started establishing their offshore development centers in Hyderabad, Microsoft, Google, Salesforce. And when I was in my school, it was always a dream job to get a job in one of these global tech giants. And
Yeah.
if you have to go see the big office of Microsoft in Hyderabad, it's fabulous. So when I was like in my 8th grade, we had a school tour.
A
They
school
took
trip.
us into the Microsoft office, right? We were touring the ODCs of Microsoft, and we're like, okay, I need to get a job there. So that curiosity about tech started from very early in my career, right? Going all the way to school days. And then eventually, when I completed my undergrad, I ventured into consulting. The very first project that I took on was for a US based insurance company after the financial crash in 2008, right? I was
Okay.
trying to go back and see patterns in liens, try to club those liens together and see if there are any non-collectibles that the insurance company can recover. And soon I realized that IBM DB2 isn't going to cut. There is lots of data, Excel sheets and DB2s. Uh, that was a venture for me into pattern recognition. Like, how do you recognize patterns? And suddenly I started realizing that stat is way more important, right? I should have studied math better in school. I came back. I did my master's in A&M, Texas A&M in College Station. And immediately when I was in my college, the very first gig that I got was at this company called Freescale Semiconductor as a business intelligence intern, helping the VP of sales to get like a propensity to buy models, P2B. That was my
Uh-huh.
introduction to sale, right? In a consulting world, I was not doing things. I was just telling how to do things. But when I ventured into this RevOps world, I was helping a VP sell more. And every time my VP sold from a P2B list, we used to celebrate. We used to go out for a lunch. And suddenly this guy quits. And the leader asked me, SK, do you want to handle selling for a couple of times before we hire a replacement in that role? And I sold. I was a very bad seller. I was a really bad seller. This was the same P2B list that I generated, the propensity to buy list. If David was selling, he was killing it. If I was selling, I was not making a dime.
And what do you think was the lacking element there?
Selling is art, it's not science, right? It's the same exact P2B list. I have 30 accounts. Now if I give you, you're going to sell more than me, right? And also having those connections and prepping up ahead was much more important. Now, how do you prep about these accounts that have 10 years of history with your account? Imagine these are long accounts and you need to understand everything. You need to prep better to present yourself in the meeting and understand the pain, right?
Yeah.
Not go ahead and pitch yourself, but understand what the customer really is looking for. And over time, that's where I developed a lot of respect for selling. They are the people
How
who
long
keep
did you do this selling job?
selling. Job was for 8 months, and
Okay.
all my targets were red. And I thought that this doesn't cut me, so I came back to RevOps. But that Elio was one of the life-changing experiences for me. So I understood how to sell. I understood like what are the prerequisites that a seller is looking for in a prep data set. And that 8 months laid a big foundation for me in RevOps world, right? I can code myself, so I'm very happy to go code. I'm happy to build and curate data sets. And I was helping these sellers sell a lot. We were selling to data center companies who were
Mhm.
buying 1 million chips every year, right? And it's a lot of money, but it's a lot of sales. And then I moved to AWS, to MongoDB in a pretty similar role, totally about 13 to 14
And
years of
when did
experience
you
in DevOps.
switch from India to the US? What job
I
brought you
was
here?
I was 22. Nothing brought me here. I went to college. The one thing that brought me here
Okay.
is my inability to uh, uh, use stat and big data properly. So that brought me here. I did my master's in information systems management
Oh, so
and
you
stat.
studied there. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I started there. It's a long, long, long time back, right? It's like 15 years now.
Great. I mean, a lot of interesting things. And I can see, I mean, so I don't know if you recall, like, I've lived in India for like 8 months
Yeah,
many years ago. One of my first jobs, it was in consulting, and I was working for the Ambani's brothers, the Reliance team.
nice.
And I learned that, like, well, I mean, what you mentioned, like, about Hyderabad and other places, like, the business acumen in these companies was extremely high. And
Yeah.
they were competing on a global, they were very good in their domestic market, obviously realized, but they knew how to win also at the global level. And that's why all these India-born companies, especially in tech consulting, have done so well worldwide, because they understood how to sell, how to implement systems at scale, and how to leverage that momentum to build more momentum. And then
One thing that is very unique for this Indian born companies, Elio, is resourcefulness. People have very limited resources. So you tend to innovate your way out and also do multitasking at every point, which again which is a role that does a lot of multitasking and wears multiple hats. That is RevOps. You are
yeah,
in systems to finance all the way across sprinkled, right? Stretched across.
strategic to tickets, to tools, platforms, yes, big systems, absolutely. And then, I mean, you mentioned other stuff in consulting, for instance, to me, it was very interesting. I started in consulting. When you start, you are mostly delivering stuff, no? You're telling people what
Yep.
to do, or you are advising customers, or you're writing slides, but you don't sell. Selling is something that is reserved for the most senior people. And so if you start in consulting, which I did, you actually look like I did to the sales job as the ultimate job. When I get to sales, I'm going to be very senior so that I can sell a consulting project. And so it's actually quite interesting how maybe both you and I experienced sales, which was this almost magical thing that happens once you know how to do that. And then you mentioned curiosity. I think it's so important to this job to be extremely curious. I mean, I find that curiosity is it's a quality that distinguishes people that are learners and continue to improve from people that don't. And so it's very important, but especially in this job, you have to be very curious to understand what's going on and ask yourself
Yeah.
constantly questions and learning more stuff.
Yeah. I mean, every ticket you resolve, Elio, you embark on a mission, just like a Sherlock Holmes digging data set to a data set to a data set. Right? If you're not curious enough and also creative enough, right? Solving tickets will only take you to an extent, but making sure that those tickets don't arise again and again and again, and they become pain in the back. That's another creativity, right? Curiosity, creativity are one of the most important things in this job.
Actually, let's go there. This is interesting. Also, looking at data. What is your approach when you look at a report or a spreadsheet or a CRM extraction? Where do your eye and mind goes?
Step one, don't believe anything. Because don't believe anything. And even though you are a director or a manager or a vice president, Elio, I mean, it's very important that you have this data analysis skill in this job, right? Even a simplest report on analyzing trends, looking at micro and macro is very, very, very important. If you're looking at account performance, right, you need to look at all sorts of uh, aggregations and also disaggregations at that account to understand and form a cohesive picture yourself. There are two things, right? You need to understand yourself, and you need to articulate the results to your fellow beings in RevOps and sales.
Yeah, yeah.
Both of them are really important, right? How do you? I mean, if I tell you a stupid stat, you can tell, SK, why are you telling this to me? You need to be able to create a story, create a hypothesis, and make sure that hypothesis is relevant to the field, right? If I go tell a VP of a RevOps saying that North America is not working or it's working, he's gonna say why or how. Then usually when I go towards that, Elio, I go with a hypothesis and also how to solve it, how to resolve it, and that really really helped me in my career. If a product adoption is bad, we have to make sure to tell to that RVP that why it is bad and what are the things that you think that could fix this. A lot of times it's very important to articulate that why.
Yeah. And so people come to you with certain hypotheses. Oh, we're not doing well here. Maybe expansion is not working, or a new customer. And then you look at the data and define, in a better way, what those hypotheses are and test through the data if they are true or not.
Yeah,
Is
and
that
more often than not, Elio, whenever somebody says that this is not working, I keep asking where it is not working. There are pockets where the product really works well. There are pockets the product doesn't work well. And then you try to understand why it works here and why it is not working in the other case. Then you start forming a story altogether, right? And now you cut this data in every angle possible. Where it is working, it's working. Is it because of seller? Is it because of better territory allocation? Is it because of better, say, what do you call it? Better resourcing at that particular region, or it's better because it's better managed region.
yeah, yeah.
Now, simple question that you and I just came up with, it just spun up like 20 different questions now. I mean, I keep asking those questions
Yeah, the sub hypothesis. Yeah.
myself, and usually my entire curiosity to this data started with territory management, right? It is like it's like bane, and also it's an entire means of existence for RevOps, right? Making a territory, it looks super easy, but you need to think through like 85 different means. Is that how do I make this territory work for my seller? How, I mean, of this ocean of like 21 million accounts, how can I just give you 10 accounts?
Yes.
Now, I just need to think through every different angle, solve that data puzzle, and come up with a hypothesis myself, and make sure that those assumptions are very well articulated with my field. If we fail altogether, right? Our assumptions are wrong, but at least you know what those assumptions are.
And then you said something very interesting. I mean, this problem is where we basically started working together. No, like a few
Yep.
years ago, it was territory mapping and like, understanding at scale data around like, how many developers exist in that company and how do you like qualify accounts or like prioritize accounts based on specific factors, including number of developers. But what you said is interesting. And it reminded me. So you said like, you need to build a story around the data, no? So like you generate hypotheses and then build a story and explain that story. And I remember that like in those early days of our collaboration, which was really a lot about like this data about territory mapping, we knew that like it's not that there is like the perfect data. Perfect data doesn't exist, but data that guides you to make decisions and build a story about what you want to do is what we are all about. And so I remember clearly, like, that we were discussing about, like, certain people were like obsessed about, oh, like, I don't know, the number of developers should be like, 25 and instead is like 23. But then, like, what's the trend? What's the approximation? So all of that, like, is it helping you build the story or no? So do you want to tell us about like your mental model there? Like, how do you actually use the data?
I'll tell you a story here. So it's an interesting one, right? In the RevOps world, there are two teams. One is strategy, who you have an army of chief of staffs who are running side by side parallelly to your go-to-market leaders. And then you have go-to-market systems, which is building and keeping up systems that help and run the machine of go-to-market.
Yeah.
And now there is an interesting use case. How many strategy people should I hire as I scale? When we started working, Elio, you remember MongoDB had 600 sellers.
Mm-hmm.
4.5 years now, we have 2,500 sellers. We grew 4x, right? That doesn't mean that I keep scaling the strategy or RevOps team linearly with say it's unproductive, right? So one of the biggest job of RevOps is territory management, and these
Yeah.
territories should be built in such a way that they help the right account to be addressed by the right person at the right time. Number one. Number two, this entire process should happen with least possible additional resources. And number three, the other thing here is that the way that you do it should be easily explainable.
Yeah.
Even the IC to a RVP to a RD should go and verify it. So I gave you this batch of accounts because they satisfy ABC criteria, and ABC criteria can be verified here and here and here. And also here, Elio, the thing that we always worked on is that how do we make sure that every seller also has a equitable approach and also a fair chance at being successful in his role. I can't say that one of my seller is going to get best territory and one I gave a territory that sucks. So making sure all of them are balanced and this goes through, right? We needed data points, and that's when we started collaborating with ScaleStack. Remember when we were getting all those data points orchestrated? You and I, we started working together to solve this territory problem. How do we get all those data points together in one UI? And also, how do we make sure every seller gets a equitable territory? And also, how do we make sure that the way that we did it is explainable? It's like not like a super good Ramanujan level math formula out there, but it is like simply somebody can go look at a developer in LinkedIn and verify that, yeah, this account has some juice in it.
Yeah.
And what that entire exercise has given us, Elio, is like reduction. We need not hire those many analysts. uh, it gives an orchestration way where all these data points come together in one UI, and it keeps a lot of our sellers happy that they can go back and check each of the data point in publicly available data sets.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, this story is great because you started like with a lot of empathy for sales, and that like drives you to the understanding of why good data is important, because it needs to be 100% accurate or else, but because it needs to impact behavior in a way that, like, people perceive fairness. For instance, in like, my account patch fair, they trust that, like, the direction of the data is the right one, and it modifies and it impacts their behavior because they prioritize certain things that we want them to be prioritizing. How is all of this changing now in the world of AI? I mean, like, maybe 10 years ago, mostly it was on spreadsheet, I assume, and,
Yeah.
extraction and reports. How is this now, like, purely in like the data analysis that you perform? How is that changing for you, like in the new AI world?
This one, I think, Elio, would be the last thing that's going to be changed with AI, because there is so much of math that goes behind in territory optimization. But that doesn't mean that it's not changing. Some of the indicators that we used are no longer the indicators in the AI world. If you look at website visits, Elio, if you go back and look like how many people from this particular company have visited the high impact
Yeah.
web pages at MongoDB, that's no longer a good indicator at all. I can't trust that data, because when ChatGPT came in, when Gemini came in, the hits through these answer engines
Absolutely.
have skyrocketed, and the visits through websites have started plummeting. Now, remember when we were in the early RevOps stages, you had that RevOps funnel, how your lead to a contact, 21 touches or 36 touches or 74 touches. Now that's all thrown out of the window, because nobody's downloading a damn document. They're just asking ChatGPT. So some of those indicators, Elio, that we use for traditional territory planning are no longer the right indicators at all. So we had to come up with new indicators. We had to come up with TAM-based indicators, revenue-based indicators, and we did change that. We did change our model into TAM-based model a year back, addressing some
So
of those
not
changes.
just in the way you work, but in the content of the stuff that we have to do is changing, because it's
Yep.
modifying behavior so much that like the old like KPIs or the old like systems like no longer reflect the reality. Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that, you've always been like a source of like interesting ideas about like what's out there in the market, what is like, available. The go-to-market landscape is very complicated. I mean, there is so many solutions, point tools, platforms. And you have had now the experience at AWS and MongoDB, your own like, experience advising companies. And how do you navigate like, the market? How do you like, do you have like certain principles by which like you are mapping the market? And I mean, I know that a lot of, when I do our dinners, and you came to one in Austin and it was great, one of the most recurring questions that I get is like, how do you like, navigate the go-to-market tech landscape? And so I bring this question to you, and like, since you are like exposed to so many companies and solutions and platforms, how do you map mentally the market?
So, man, that's a right question at the right time, honestly. Right now, Elio, This is the time where the market is flooded with these .ai solutions everywhere, right? Every wrapper on ChatGPT, every wrapper on Gemini is out there in the world trying to make a new age, what we call virtual SDR, a virtual CSM, a virtual rep. God knows how many are going to exist in like 2 years' time. But let's see where the market goes. But traditionally, Elio, the way that I look at the go-to-market tech stack is I need CRM, which is my central hub, and tools that plug in into the CRM on the top of the funnel and that take data into the bottom of the funnel. So if you think what are my top of the funnel tooling, they come across all my lead providers, all of the orchestrating platforms on top of leads, and then you have your activity tracking tools. All of them are funneling data into CRM, right?
Hmm.
And then now there are tools that take this data out of CRM, say revenue tools, which are bottom of the funnel ones, say Clary or Boostups, all of the tools that take data away. Now, traditionally, if you are starting a company, I would make sure that you have a top of the funnel base covered, you have a CRM base covered, and you have the bottom of the funnel base covered. On top of that, there are your point solutions, right? For CS, and on top of all of these data sources, you have your layer of reasoning and layer of answering and agent orchestration that sits on top of these stacks, right?
Hmm.
And the way that I am looking at the tooling family right now, Elio, is that what is this tool doing? Is it just plugging into an existing data source and giving me an AI response, which most tools are, right? I'll plug into your data sets and I'll reply. Or are they really orchestrating data sources in the back?
Hmm.
I want the tool to orchestrate properly rather than just respond. I can build a rack solution pretty easily, very, very easily. But making sure that orchestration happens is very important, right?
Yeah. No, no, good. No. I was just thinking about like go continue, and I want to know.
I mean, that when you're building that workflows, Elio, when you're building those AI workflows, your AI workflow cannot exist without a proper orchestration. If the tool is just giving me that little AI workflow without orchestration, then you're leaving the bulk of crap to me. Uh, think about MongoDB, right? We take 36,000 meetings every month, unfathomable amount, right? For the size of MongoDB, or even more in a good month, right? Countless number of phone calls and about a million odd emails. Is this data all orchestrated in a manner that if I slap an AI on top, it's going to respond? Answer is no, it is not. That is a bigger problem for RevOps today rather than just an AI on top.
And so interesting structuring. What is the role then of the CRM? Because you defined it as central hub, and so sometimes, like I admire Salesforce. I think they built like a phenomenal platform, but if you strip like the top of the funnel, you strip the bottom of the funnel, and so some of the like agentic components, and also we assume that this intelligent orchestration which you were talking about, which is, like in part what SkillStack does, for example. If it doesn't happen in the CRM, what is the role of the CRM? Is it like just a data cloud? Or what do you expect the CRM to do?
So in the current form where we are today, can we replace Salesforce? I mean, if you had asked me this question like 2 years back, I would have firmly said no. If you're asking this question right now, my answer is like partly yes and partly no, right? Because Salesforce, I admire what they have built. They are the very first cloud company. But again, the use of Salesforce in use cases, particularly in some of the use cases, is relegated down to a CRUD database, right? Biggest problem is not Salesforce itself, Elio. Biggest problem is the tech debt that companies have incurred on top of Salesforce.
Yeah.
So at MongoDB, our instance is 12 years old. If I go back to AWS, it's like 15 years old. Now, imagine the number of Apex jobs that are written on top of one another, which are
Yeah.
continuously operating is it's
Mind-boggling.
mind-boggling, right? It will always render this system unavailable for your operations.
Yeah.
Now, the problem isn't Salesforce, it is robust. Is it slow? It is slow because we piled up this years and years of tech debt on top of Salesforce instances. Now, the use case of Salesforce is that it does everything in the world. CPQ, yes. Account planning, yes.
Territory mapping,
Lead
yes.
territory mapping, yes. Lead conversion, yes. MQL dispositioning, yes. So the problem is there's so many workflows that are converging at this point into Salesforce, which makes it difficult for companies to displace it.
Yeah.
But if you're starting a new company right now, I would say just use a CRUD database, right? If you turn off Salesforce for a small little company, they would not even notice it.
Yeah.
Right?
And
Because
you have tested Agentforce, right?
we have tested Agentforce. I have tested a bunch of other services on top of it.
What is the
I would
role that you expect them to, like, maybe without the brand of Agentforce, but like that type of agent that like goes into the CRM and, like you were saying like earlier, like, it goes and it reads the data. It doesn't change the data. It reads the data and spits out some conclusions about the data. What is the role that you see, and should that be built internally, or you want to buy that?
again, it depends on the maturity of your development teams. So I would not suggest that everyone go build agentic layer on top. For me, Agentforce is what MuleSoft is in a traditional world, right? It's an orchestrating platform where you can orchestrate on your existing Salesforce Apex or flows, or now you just add another layer that is a prompt that's hitting an LLM. But the biggest problem is usability there. Uh, I mean, I need data from Salesforce to be available at my fingertips. You and I know, Elio, we built a small little internal tool called CodeGTM, which is a small little RAG bot, right? It's not earth-shattering invention. It's a RAG bot that's connected to MongoDB data sources that funnels answers in Slack. And it's been like 3 years and people still use it. People still use it because it is in Slack. It is handy for them. They can just open up their phone, turn on voice, and ask a question, and it responds. Simple.
Yeah.
So I found use cases like that, which are very simple, which are very easily accessible, are gaining more and more traction. One. Number two, people have fondness to UIs more because if you go back and see the average of a rep or a SDR right now, they are very young. They're young to me. They are like 23, 24 years old people. And this generation is much more Gen Z-ish. They need confetti flying when they close the deal, and they need better UIs, right? Nothing wrong. That the UI of Salesforce seems a bit dated.
Yeah.
So
No, we can go hours on this. I mean, you and I have had a lot of experience in everything that we're talking about. Joint experience from like a startup perspective, ours, like to an enterprise perspective, MongoDB. And I think, for instance, like it's very interesting what we have gone through, for instance, with the product that we co-author, Spotlight. No, so this was as soon as GenAI came to the marketplace, we started working with it, both you and I and our respective companies. And the instinct was immediately to put together a UI with a sort of like a co-pilot orchestrating data and like bringing these insights right in front of the rep. I think what we have discovered over the last couple of years is that actually going back and smartly orchestrating the data to then feed this data wherever it needs to be existing is the better strategy. Because, you can have Slack, you can have email, you can have like Salesforce, you can have like Outreach or Salesloft. They are all like, or pre-built interfaces to receive data and consume data. But if you're lacking a well-orchestrated data, a foundational data, everything sort of falls apart. And in many ways, like we know that we're going back to work on like that original idea of Spotlight, but mostly from the perspective of where is the data and well-orchestrated data
we
rather than UI.
We were ahead of our times, Elio. So we were ahead of our times. 2 years ahead of that use case, honestly.
I think I still have, yes, I do, this one, which is
there was some stickers like, oh, nice.
I still have it. This is Spotlight for people. We're going to brand it.
The use case that we picked, Elio, was the right itch. It was
Yes.
an exact use case, right? Now, if you think of now, I can go back and show you right now. If I go and search my name in Zoom Info, it tells that I am the business operations manager at NXP Semiconductors. That was 10 years back. 10
Wow.
years back,
Okay.
right? After that, I moved two companies. It was 10 years back data. So now imagine when I am generating the lead list of these lead providers. If you go look at Elio, there are 8 Elios with 5 phone numbers and 3 emails. Now we are serving this data up to SDRs. We're serving this data up to reps to just go prospect. What the heck they're gonna prospect off this list, right? They're gonna shove it into an automatic cadence, and that's why the open rates are less than 1%, and
Mhm.
click rates are even less. So these are all consequences of bad orchestration, right? That's where the tools like scale stacks come into play. Is that how do you make sure to enrich this data properly before it is actioned elsewhere? You're not trying to action on the data. You're trying to make sure the data shape is right. Data shape is consolidated with all the indicators, and then put it into a place, right? And you're doing it at bulk. It's not like
Yeah.
1,000 data points. It's here we're enriching like 90 million data points or 80 million data points. Doing that at scale needs a particular rigor and understanding of go-to-market workflows. And
Yeah.
that's the thing that I really, really like about you guys, is that you guys bend over backwards to understanding these core user platforms, right? How many times we spoke with each other, hours and hours of conversations on these, right? Where is the exact bottleneck? Because Zoom Info works really well in Americas. If you go to EMEA, it's Lucia or Cognizant. If you go to LATAM, it's some other tool. If you go to somewhere else, it's some other tool. Like how many contracts that I can have? That's the biggest pain point with these lead sourcing providers, and how all this data flows from lead providers into marketing sources, from marketing sources into Salesforce or some CRM or a CRUD data set where I action on them, or into a sequencer like Salesloft or Gongs or Outreach. Now you throw it into a sequencer. So now if you consider all of that, Elio, it's heck of a job.
Yeah. No, and I think that we work with all these companies, both you and I, they do a fantastic job at collecting data, maintaining data. But the word enrichment, I've always found it sort of misleading, because I want to enrich based on my ICP and based on my go-to-market strategy, which is going to be different than yours or the next company. And so enrichment to me is, first off, what's my ICP? What are the attributes that I care about? And they may come from product data, revenue data, signals on third party, contact details, news, and initiatives and changes in the team. That's a multi-source type of approach. And I need to do intelligent orchestration to mix and match data sets, even assuming that each individual data set is right, which sometimes is not, but it's the nature of data, it changes. You need to mix and match based on your ICP and your go-to-market strategy. How much has your go-to-market strategy on MongoDB changed over the last 3 years? Enormously.
Enormously, yeah.
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 And so using the same models that we had 3 years ago would not be fitting.
Yeah. And also, Elio, if you think of that, this strategy, when you take it to an IC level, the way, even though the same ICP works for overall, it might not work for a person in Atlanta versus London. They follow complete different set of enrichment. And that flexibility is again what reps are looking for, right? They're looking, it's like a little bit of an IKEA model here. Although how much ever that we give a rep an enriched data set, the last mile is that I do want to add this one particular because that works only for me. If it works for you, yeah, it works for you. So that is another aspect of this entire lead enrichment. And signals, oh man, signals is
Same.
another ocean on its own. How many signals? How do I even call it signals? These are all data points that don't make any sense. What happens if your cluster scales down or scales up? Is that a signal? Is that a noise? So deciphering that, and that is where AI will be really effective. Making sure all those data points are plugged in, and now you run an AI layer on top, a reasoning layer on top. That's going to give you a better response, right? Plugging in all of those data points into a reasoning engine. Now the reasoning engine, and also you can have LLM as a judge, judging that reasoning concurrently and then spitting out a path for you.
Yeah.
would save some time for my reps for sure, right? For SDRs, for AEs who are doing that account level research.
Man, so much. What is your mental model for buy versus build? I mean, you built a MongoDB. You mentioned Code GTM, Spotlight. It's like co-building, and then you bought stuff. What is your mental model in general? Like on buy
Okay.
versus build.
Traditionally, Elio, there are use cases that are very commoditized. There are solutions out there which are tried and tested, that are proven. For me, I don't think that I know everything in the world. That's why I bank on people like you. That's why I bank on people outside of our company as well, to understand where the people are building, where people are buying. Usually, for my mental model, I make sure what kind of data is being recited within our data boundary, and what kind of data are we sourcing. If you're talking about leads, it's more or less a third party data that is coming in. If you talk about revenue,
Yeah.
then the data boundary is much more stronger there. And also again, it depends on the maturity of your tech team that you have, can build and deliver these resources. The problem here is also scaling. As you scale up, how do you scale your existing tooling? It's multiple decisions, Elio, that multiple factors that go into understanding where we build and where we buy. I think more or less a lot of the RevOps teams are adopting like a mixed approach currently, right? They're trying to buy where it makes sense, and they're trying to build where
Yeah. And do you
security is.
think you mentioned the scaling, and like I have obviously a clear shared example that we discovered like a product that it was built internally, but it required like a product manager and engineers, and it was very difficult to maintain and scale, and it was used only internally, it wasn't sold outside. And so do you apply the mental model of like, I'll do the build for the experimentation, and then once I find like clarity on like on the use case and what I need, I'll go buy it. Is that an approach that you use or not yet?
There are some we can, but for me, Elio, there are some use cases that are clear cut by. There are
Yeah, of
some use
course.
cases.
But yeah, for those, like, let's set them aside. But like, for those that are not clear cut, would you
Yeah,
say like I
for me
experiment
personally,
on?
I like co-building the most. It's a mutual benefit for both the firms. Like you guys built on MongoDB, and we guys use you,
Yeah, yeah.
and so much innovation flows through in co-building, and I personally love it so much. And also scaling, as you rightly articulated, it's challenge, right? If when you're quadrupling your sales force in like 2 years, 3 years of time, you need better resources, as many resources to support that unique platform. And at some point, the entire cost of maintaining this tool is much more than your annual subscription amount that you pay and get the tool.
Yeah, yeah. There
And also
was
keeping up with the AI world as well, right? For me, the biggest risk in building these AI tools internally is that tomorrow this entirely changes, and all my cost is a sunk cost at that point.
there is the former CEO of Amazon Retail, David Clark.
Mhm.
I just saw a post from him the other day. It was funny. Like the writing culture at Amazon.
Yeah.
And so this is a guy that got to like being the CEO of like Amazon consumer retail. And he said like I've used working backwards docs for 23 years at Amazon. I've decided that I'm not longer going to do that because I'm going to build the prototype, put it in the hands of like actual users or potential users, learn from that, and then like decide I'm gonna build, I'm gonna buy, like depending on that. And I thought it was a very interesting model, like because you and I were both at Amazon, crazy about like the working backwards document, work backwards from like the
Yeah.
users or customer needs before you start like coding. But now with AI, I think we have a phenomenal opportunity to build a prototype quickly, test it, and there are evidence that what you just said about like co-building brings better results. There was an MIT study a few months ago that said like 95% of Gen
The
AI
AI programs. Yeah.
But one of the things that they said is that companies that partner together, like, MongoDB with little scale stack, get better results and achieve like better building together because they complement each other, they go faster, they push each other. Clearly, you guys have pushed us a lot. And like in some ways, we have also like raised the bar for like innovating on AI and orchestration, all of that.
Yep, 100%. For me, Elio, the success of a Gen AI program is more dependent on picking the right use case. If you pick a forecasting use case for AI, your project is definitely the entire fate is sealed right up front, right? As a Gen AI or a RevOps operator, we all need to make sure that the use case that we are picking is right, and the data that is supporting this use case is well orchestrated. These are all your failures, points of failure for a Gen AI program, right? I don't believe that 95% of projects
No.
fail. It's crazy.
No, I wrote a blog about it. I thought it was like just to attention grabbing, bait clicking type of title, because also like the same study said that like 80% of people and companies adopt Gen AI for their own individual user. So that's also AI, no? So that's like saying that it was just, but it was interesting to see that like the study brought forward like a couple of things which were interesting for us. Like one is that there is a lot of opportunity in the back office because like once you touch the activation layer, the AI, SDR and all of that, that's human behavior. You need to be careful. We need to still learn. Like, and that was our own experience with Spotlight. That like, people love the idea of Spotlight orchestrating data across like dots of different insights, but they were very scared of having like another user interface.
Yep.
Right?
Yep, 100%. And also, Elio, thought of this notion that AI is gonna replace a role. I think it's a little bit too far fetched as well. It's also a click, like you said, it's clickbait there. Do you respond to a AI driven email at this point? At this point,
Yeah.
definitely not for me. Probably in 2 years' time, where it becomes much more curated, might be. We're at the very early stages of those AI-driven outbounds, Elio. I don't want them to be like a T-Mobile or a AT&T phone call where you answer, "Take me to a customer service rep immediately," right? It should not be like that. It
Yeah,
should be
you wanna
intelligent.
gain value, but then like know that it's like generating that value for you. Now, super interesting stuff, man. This was great, as I expected it, and even more. Let's make it like maybe a regular appearance so that we like check in every few months to discuss like the state of all of this stuff. SK, it's been a pleasure to have you here. I think everyone can understand and see the enthusiasm that you put in everything that you do, and that I've been like enjoying for the past like few years, and here to many more years of building together, SK. It's been a pleasure to have you here, and good luck with everything.
Yep. Thank you so much, Elio, for having me. It's been a pleasure working with you all. It's been a pleasure talking with you, exchanging ideas, and let's keep it going.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
Ciao.
Bye, Elio.